Today, I'm sitting down with someone who just gets it whenever it comes to women's health, Dr. Liana Rodriguez. She is a functional medicine doctor, entrepreneur, and mentor who has been helping women navigate perimenopause and menopause in a way that's actually empowering. And what makes this episode extra special is that Dr. Liana and I have teamed up to bring PEAK Integrative Medicine to Mississippi. This is such a dream come true for me. So I'm pumped to finally be able to say that. And this really is just a way for us to combine our shared vision for root cause healing and personalized care. I'm just so excited to be able to offer telehealth functional medicine services right here in Mississippi. Now, what I love most about Dr. Liana is that she has walked both worlds, internal medicine and functional medicine, and she now blends the best of both of those to support women in truly transformative ways. In this episode, we're going to be diving into hormones and metabolism, but through the lens of foundational health. Because let's be real, you cannot fix your hormones if your gut, your adrenals, and your detox pathways are a mess. Some of the things that we hope to be breaking down are the myths around cortisol, insulin, and gut health that keep women stuck. What it really looks like to lay the foundation before you really jump into hormone protocols, why so many women feel off even though their labs are normal, and how metabolism is so much more than just calories in and calories out, but it's really like a full body conversation. So if you have been feeling overwhelmed or confused about where to start with your hormones, then this episode will give you clarity, validation, and a clear path forward. Dr. Liana, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. This is going to be so good.
Yes, I am just so excited to have you today. And I feel like we could talk about all the things and just go on and on. One of the things that we both see so often is women jumping into these hormone protocols right away or testing hormones right away. But if their gut, their liver, or adrenals are not supported, then those results can really just be totally off. I would love for you to just tell me what you've seen and what that looks like.
Yes, I've been in the world of functional medicine for a decade at this point, and hormones are something that I've started to specialize in at least a few years ago. And what I realize is that it was easy for me to actually dip into that world and do that because I helped people with the whole foundation first. So I realized that starting to treat hormones, you have to start even before that. And that what I mean by that is you have to start at the foundational levels of health, meaning like looking at your gut, looking at stress, looking at your nutrition, all those things.
All those like mundane things that people
Right. All the things, right. All the unsexy things that
Yeah.
people like, they just like, oh, whatever. Okay. I just need my hormones fixed. And it's like, yes, I get that. And to fix them, we need to do a little excavating and build a foundation first, because you want to build a skyscraper on concrete rather than sand, right? Nobody wants to build a skyscraper on sand. It makes no sense. So what I found is when I started doing bioidentical hormone replacement therapy with women was that the only way it would work is if we addressed their gut health, their nutrition, and their adrenal glands first, actually. We started with the hormones that most people don't even think are hormones, and that is cortisol and insulin. And so the way to deal with cortisol and insulin is a lot of lifestyle, mundane things that a lot of people just skip over, right? Because they want to just get to the end. And here's the thing, I get that. I totally get that. I totally agree that we want to feel better faster, and we need to feel good to some degree to be able to continue the journey of changing our foundation. And you and I can help people do that, give some immediate relief while we change the foundation. But yes, to your point, what I've seen is that when I do start hormone replacement therapy, if we're not addressing the foundation first, people end up with higher doses that they don't really need. They end up spending more money. They end up taking longer to feel better. And honestly, the list goes on and on. So it's best to address that foundation, like you said.
Yeah. And a lot of those foundational things too, like whenever I talk to a bunch of patients, it's like We need to make sure that we're eating at the right times of the day, eating the right foods, things like this. Like you said, the things that are unsexy. But what you don't realize, or what maybe they don't realize behind the scenes, is that we're helping regulate your blood sugar and your insulin, which like is a hormone, like you said, making sure that your sleep-wake cycle and your circadian rhythm is balanced. That's working on your cortisol, which is a hormone. So before you even look into taking hormone replacement therapy, like you said, there's so many different things that can be done.
You said something earlier that was a mic drop moment, and I just want to bring that back. It was that the conversation that's happening in the body is so much more.
Yes.
And I think people need to hear that the conversation is more than just, okay, what is your estrogen doing?
And there's so many things that can influence estrogen. And so much of that is lifestyle, environment, that kind of thing. And it's ironic because we were planning to talk about this today. And yesterday I was actually talking to somebody who was asking what I did, and they were interested in seeing a functional medicine practitioner. And they said that they had been on hormone replacement therapy for years. They've been seeing a practitioner regularly for that. And they've also been getting some muscle testing done. And they know that there's some work that needs to be done as far as like detoxing. And they're on a bunch of supplements and things like this. But they've never had anybody just look at their basic lab work or even address lifestyle or dietary things. And it was an interesting conversation because she was doing all of these high things, right? These things that are more down the road, but the basics she did not have. And just from that conversation, she said her hormones were always up and down, and that dose was always having to be adjusted. But like you were saying, the foundation work, nobody had ever addressed that with her. If a lot of that foundational work is addressed, you might not even have to be on the hormones, let alone adjusting them as frequently. I think that just understanding that everything is connected is something that people don't realize. And I didn't realize until very later on in my career. So
Right.
that's just, it's not something that people talk about for sure.
And that foundational stuff is what most people wish their primary care doctor would do. And that foundational stuff is what people would benefit from the most to prevent having to see like 5, 6, 7 doctors before they can figure out what's actually going on. Yeah.
Yeah. And just having to do with metabolism too, just the conversation about metabolism, it can be very outdated. And we're taught so much it's about burning calories, but with functional medicine, we know that metabolism is impacted by so many other things like sleep, stress, blood sugar, inflammation. And I know that we have both seen how powerful it is whenever women do understand like that whole body picture. I know we were talking about like cortisol and insulin. These are hormones. These are hormones that you can impact and influence just with your daily activity. You don't need these expensive protocols. You don't need hormone replacement therapy to impact these things. But cortisol, insulin resistance, estrogen dominance, like these are all just terms floating around everywhere on social media. I would love to break down some more of those myths and help people understand how these hormones really interact, especially in perimenopause.
Let's do it.
Yeah. With insulin resistance, I'll just throw this one out here, for example. I think a lot of women, especially whenever we hear anything about insulin resistance, we think diabetes immediately. We think, oh, if I'm not a diabetic, I don't need to worry about my blood sugar regulation. I don't need to keep up with that. My doctor checks that yearly. But insulin and glucose on a daily basis are impacted. What do you see whenever you see patients that come to you, maybe that have questions about that?
Here's the thing, I don't even see people questioning that. The only people I see talking about their insulin resistance are PCOS patients. If there's someone who's been diagnosed or questioned about that, or maybe they've been on Google and done the research to see, is this PCOS? They've probably found something about insulin resistance, which I love. I love when people come to us informed. That's the best. But for the most part, I'm checking things. I'm checking a fasting insulin level. I'm checking a fasting glucose. I'm looking at a hemoglobin A1C. I'm looking at some other things like a HOMA score. So these are like things to verify if someone has insulin resistance. And when I give them the results, they're like, wait, I have insulin resistance, right? So they don't even understand from the get-go that this is a factor in the equation until I tell them that it is. And most people I'm finding are insulin resistant and didn't even know it. They had no clue because number one, they don't know to look for it. Number two, the standard traditional, like conventional guidelines only recommend looking for insulin resistance or pre-diabetes, right? We can call it that, and only in certain situations. So type
Yeah.
2 diabetics, or if you're a certain age, right? If you're a certain age, they'll start looking at an A1C, or if they find something off in your basic, very basic lab work, like with a fasting glucose, when it reaches a high level, which is way past insulin resistance, then they'll look at a hemoglobin A1C. But at that point, if you have a fasting glucose that's way elevated enough for a conventional doctor to say, hey, we need to look further, you've probably already had the issue for at least 5 to 10 years. And that's what we're seeing. And 5 to 10 years down the road, there's already damage to small arteries, small vessels that can create like chronic disease. So yeah, I'm finding that people just don't even know it's a problem. And then I'm the first one bringing it to their attention, which is really dangerous, actually.
Yeah, I like how you pointed that out because unless the person has been diagnosed with PCOS before, they probably are
Right.
not aware of insulin resistance or have that question. But insulin, fasting insulin, most insurance companies don't even cover it,
No.
as opposed to a fasting glucose, but it's actually an earlier marker, earlier detection marker for
Right.
any kind of pre-diabetes. That goes to make you question all kinds of different things. But it's the same thing with estrogen dominance. I think unless somebody has been given that diagnosis and has some of these main symptoms that you would see with estrogen dominance, that they're not aware of that either.
There's a lot of controversy. Well, number one, so estrogen dominance is like that term. It's like the term adrenal fatigue. Like a lot of providers, you get like they're just up in arms about what it means and that it's a misnomer and all that. And I see both sides of the argument. Like I do prefer some terms to be more specific and accurate, but I do understand that not everything is black and white, right? There are some gray areas, and estrogen dominance is one of those things that I never learned that in medical school. I'm sure you didn't learn that in your training either, right? That was something that we learned in our functional medicine training. And a lot of conventional providers are arguing, well, it's just that estrogen is high. That's what that means. And you guys shouldn't be saying that. But what it means is it's just a relative term. So it means that estrogen is more prevalent and higher in levels than progesterone. So estrogen and progesterone have a very special relationship. And so when there's more estrogen floating around in your system and being recycled back into your system, and progesterone starts falling in perimenopause, that's when a lot of women start to experience the high estrogen symptoms, which is like heavy menstrual bleeding, heavier cramps, and they have more issues with their cycle.
But with that too, like you still have to look at the whole picture. I've had some people who have had just their estrogen tested, and you can't look at just that one number. Yeah, okay, if it's high, that's telling you something, but it's in relation to the other hormones too. So you definitely have to look at the whole picture. And that's just one example where that's really important. But let's talk about cortisol now. Cortisol is that stress hormone that we definitely need, but whenever it is turned on all the time, causes so much inflammation in the body. I think it's so hard these days, especially for women, because we hold ourselves and society holds us at this high standard of like always having to be a go-getter, get things done. We have to be the mom, we have to be the housekeeper, we have to do all those things and work. And a lot of women are entrepreneurs and very successful. And it's so much stress. It's so much stress. I feel like it's a constant battle of, okay, let's try to de-stress. Let's try to just lower that cortisol. Some ways that I like to make sure people do regulate their cortisol is just making sure that sleep wake cycle is adequate. I think that's one of the biggest things, making sure that you go to bed at a decent time, wake up at the same time. Night shift is not great, y'all.
Yeah, and I know, tell me about it. I know night shift is necessary for the world to operate the way that we do. I get that. And I also believe it should only be like for a season. And I heavily believe that night shift workers should rotate and not have that be their only source of the only way that they work. Night shift workers are like some of the sickest people that I see. And when I do see them, I'm like, I hate to be the one to break this to you, but this will not be fixed unless you sleep better. And people underestimate how much goes on when we're asleep. Healing happens, right? Detox happens. So when you're resting and you get deep sleep and REM sleep and the later stages of sleep, that's when deeper healing occurs too, especially when it comes to gut health. So when you're truly rested and relaxed, your blood flow will flow more to the abdomen than other parts of your body. But if you're in fight or flight and you're really stressed and you're not getting sleep, then that won't happen. And then you can end up with gut issues. So that's just one way that like cortisol, your adrenal glands are related to the gut, and why we work on both at the same time.
And I know a lot of people do hear cortisol, the stress hormone, and they think that it's bad and that it has to be lowered like at all costs. But it's really not so much like the cortisol that's the enemy, right? Because you do need that. Like
Right.
you need that for
Yeah.
energy, for focus, for survival. You're in danger. But it's whenever that cortisol is dysregulated, like if it's too high or too low because of chronic stress, it can be from blood sugar issues too, or poor sleep. That's one big reason why, just like you said, the foundations are so important, because we don't want to eliminate this cortisol, but just put it back into rhythm. I know some people have thought about testing cortisol, and there's different ways to test cortisol too. And we could go down a whole rabbit hole with that. But cortisol follows this daily rhythm that it's supposed to be higher in the morning and go down as the day goes on. But sometimes I know people have tested their cortisol at just one point, but that doesn't tell you the whole picture either.
Yeah. A lot of people come to me with a 1 a.m. cortisol blood draw in the morning. And that's wonderful if we're trying to rule out something very specific, right? If I'm looking at someone who potentially has like Addison's disease or something really like a zebra of a diagnosis, that's when I would order an AM cortisol. But if we're looking at why you're feeling wired and tired, why you feel like you don't have enough energy up until 11 a.m., and then all of a sudden you're awake, or why you feel like maybe you turn off at 2, 3 p.m. and then you're ready to go to bed by 5. That's when it's useful to do a saliva test that looks at 4 samples of your cortisol levels throughout the day. And that's what I found to be super helpful, because we're supposed to have cortisol swing up and down. We're supposed to be resilient. But when we're under like constant stress and we're chronically worrying, and it's interesting because in perimenopause, that's that in our 40s, I'm seeing it like late 30s, throughout our
Yeah.
40s, that's when their kids may be older, right? They're probably in midpoint of their career, an entrepreneur, maybe trying to start the business or have a career change, maybe get a divorce, maybe like they've been married. There's just so many things that happen in midlife. Anything can happen. When you say dysregulated cortisol, that just means that we're swinging the pendulum consistently in one direction. Like we're supposed to have a lot of cortisol for certain situations, and then we're supposed to be able to regulate it and bring it back down to a normal level. But when we're constantly under that stress, when we're not sleeping well, when we're not healing, when we're not detoxing, that's when all the perimenopause symptoms get way worse, because cortisol is driving a lot of what's happening with our thyroid, estrogen, progesterone, all the things.
Yes. And I think like you and I, we're sitting here saying all of this, but y'all, we used to be in the situation where we did night shift. Like we were both in the
Yeah.
medical, like we did night shift. We were
Yeah.
exhausted. We were wired and tired. So I think, at least for me, one reason why I like know a lot about this now is because I went through it. And I was like,
Right.
what the heck is happening? So if you're in the trenches of that and you're like, okay, gosh, like I just don't think I can get there, it's totally possible. Like you can overcome that. We've been there. We have totally been there before. I think
Yeah.
health workers just
Yeah.
get the brunt of it.
Yeah, it's true. I come from back in the day. It's almost 20 years ago that I graduated med school. And I used to do the 30-hour work week that before they passed the law. I call it easy now, but I was literally working 30 to 36 hours straight easily 3 times a week. So it was rough. And yeah, most of us, when you experience burnout, sometimes it's too late. You notice it at the point of like where you just literally can't go anymore. And that's
Right.
unfortunate.
Yeah. But I've been there. Guilty. I have
Yeah.
been. And we were talking about just how everything is connected and the foundation is so important. And elevated cortisol can actually spike your glucose too and trigger this insulin resistance. So just to tie all those loose ends together, putting all the pieces together, whenever you hear somebody, a provider, say you need to eat healthier, maybe they don't have time to talk to you a lot about like the lifestyle changes, things like this, eat a healthier diet, sleep better. But those are the things that we need to really tune into more for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
man. That's why health coaching is super important. And it's going to be even more valuable in the future. When people start understanding and getting a sense of how much their eating affects their life, coaching is going to become a necessary for us in our practice. And the coaching is necessary. Like, we require that people attend coaching and understand how their food is affecting their lifestyle.
For sure. I know I found myself at a certain season in my life where I did feel like I was coaching my patients so much more. And that really gave me such an insight into how important just the basics were through my own experiences. But once you start talking to your patients more about things like this and that changing their life more than a prescription, that's
Right.
whenever you really see that light bulb. We have both worked with patients who are doing all the right things, but they still feel off. And so much of the time, that missing piece is that they have not addressed their nervous system, trauma that they've been through, or like this chronic stress response. And I know that this is an area that you absolutely love to talk about. So tell me, what are your thoughts on this and how can people address that?
So there's something on TikTok. I think it started on TikTok, or yeah, like this thing called nervous system regulation. Although didn't originate on TikTok, but people started talking about it there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people knock TikTok medicine, but let me tell you, I agree that you should always consult with your provider at a medical professional about what you have going on. And I love how much awareness comes to different topics, especially this one. So much awareness has come to the nervous system because of social media. And I'm really grateful for that because, like we mentioned earlier, when you're sleeping, there's a lot of healing that happens in your body when you sleep because you're relaxed, because your nervous system is putting itself in a parasympathetic state, which is the state of rest, relaxation. It's when your immune system is actively working and doing its best. It's when your gut's churning and detoxing and doing all the things it needs to keep your body healthy and sustained. So the nervous system, because of chronic stress, chronic worry, could even be trauma. It could be negative thought patterns or negative disempowering beliefs about yourself that you may be unconscious to. It's responding to all of that, your nervous system. Okay. So it's responding to every thought, feeling, everything that you have. And it's creating neurotransmitters and hormones based off of what's going on in that thinking realm, right? In the mental realm and the emotional realm. Like, that's how your emotions get translated to physical manifestations in the body, right? Your nervous system, your subconscious mind, not your conscious mind, but your subconscious mind is directly connected to your autonomic nervous system, which is the automatic part of your nervous system that's regulating how many times your heart is beating per minute, how much you're breathing, right? Because you don't have to consciously think to take a breath. Your subconscious mind, your autonomic nervous system, all of that is regulating it in the background, right? Because you're busy living life when your conscious brain, when we are under chronic stress, under chronic worry, we don't stop to actually decompress. If we're repressing emotions, if we're suppressing anger, especially if we are just other than addressing what's happening with our mindset and our thoughts, and we just this is a great analogy. If we just let the inmates run the asylum, then the nervous system gets dysregulated. And what we mean is the autonomic nervous system. So if there's unhealed trauma that you're potentially reacting from, and you're constantly in trauma responses day in and day out from unrelated things, right, in your life, you are potentially wrecking hormones and you are producing different types of neurotransmitters based off of how you're thinking and feeling. So I think it's really important for people to understand that the healing happens on multiple layers, right? It's not just let me fix my hormones and then I'll feel better. It's more of a inside out job and an outside in job, right? So for the people that particularly do not get better, really for everyone that I work with, but for the people particularly who get no relief when we're really like helping them and doing some heavy lifting with medication or supplements or lifestyle change, then we have to have an honest conversation about what needs to be healed on a deeper energetic, emotional, spiritual level, because those things are affecting your hormones and your neurotransmitters and your physiology invisibly on an unconscious level that you're not aware of.
And that's one thing too that I love that we address here at Peak though, is that we do take this holistic approach, and even having a community of other people to talk to, like some things that are traumatic or just needing that extra support. It's always nice to have other people there. And I think too, a lot of people want to heal in private for some reason and don't want to ask for help or support. And so even knowing that there's other people experiencing similar health concerns that you're experiencing, we have a community where you can bounce things off of each other and stuff. Being able to address the stress, the relationships you have with yourself and other people, nutrition, movement, sleep habits, like all of those foundations. By doing all of that, then you can start to fix your hormones. It's like you're starting to fix your hormones and really work on that before you even are aware you're doing that. Yeah. Yeah. So I know a lot of women do feel really overwhelmed and intimidated whenever they do think about like hormone testing or functional medicine in general. And we both know that it does not have to be overwhelming. And I like to think that we've made that point too by just talking about some of the simple lifestyle changes that can happen here. There are these simple, powerful steps that women can take to help support their hormones that does not have to be hormone replacement therapy right away. And
Right.
some of those things I always like to say start with blood sugar balance. That's one thing. By doing that, just making sure that you're eating at the right time of the day, not snacking and grazing all day, making sure that you're eating 3 meals, really focusing on protein. That's just like a small place to start, because I know even just like nutrition, like that can be, all of these things can be so overwhelming, especially if you're throwing it all at somebody at once. I know we mentioned sleep and supporting your nervous system. What are some other like practical tips that you like to give your patients?
I deal more so in the realm of perimenopause, menopause, and andropause. So I'm seeing patients who are mainly in their mid 30s and up at this point. And what I like to have them focus on, and what I like to remind them, is that what got you here won't get you there. In our 20s, even early 30s, you get a lot of people who were training really hard, or maybe they were runners, right? And so, one of the practical things I like to have people do when they get to a place of, oh, I'm in my 40s, or my hormones shifted and my body's changing and I can't lose this weight, I have them shift their exercise. So that's one thing to look at. That's something that you're struggling with, because bone density does start to fall for everyone after the age of even 30, but it's like more so even after 40. So definitely I love to have women who are having hormonal shifts do more lifting and strength training. And I think it's way more acceptable now than it was like when I grew up in like the Jane Fonda age and like the cardio age, where everybody was like so cardio obsessed.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that's shifting, and that we have social media showing women lifting and doing strength training. Like I'm all about that. I love it. So I think incorporating more strength training is one simple thing people can do.
Yeah, I love that. That's something that I definitely emphasize as well. And you see all these women go into Orange Theory or Burn Boot Camp, and I just want to say, sit down, just slow down, just sit down and pick up something heavy. You don't have to
Right.
do
If
that.
I used to do Orange Theory a long time ago. That was because I was in the Air Force and I had to run. Like I had to be a runner for the Air Force. But now, yeah, if I go to Burn Boot Camp, I'm doing more lifting versus their like hit days, because their hit days are like straight up cardio. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I know I need to lift more. So I take my time and I go slower, but it's what you got to do. It's definitely a shift, especially I'm at 46. So definitely see my body responding better to strength than to cardio at this point.
Yeah. I did Orange Theory one time and I was like, bye. It's like, no, I'm not doing this again. Mostly because I think it just kicked my butt. But
Well, right.
I was like, I can't do this every day or every other day. It was just too much. But another thing I like to tell people is to really focus on your gut health first. And so much of that is just like digestion and detox pathways. And that kind of stuff just needs to be worked on before you just go jump right into hormone therapy and hormone testing, really.
Yeah, and I love that you focus on digestion, because there's so many things that people can be doing that give them better digestion that are so simple, like just literally chewing your food.
That to me was the biggest game changer. Like, I used to not be able to eat anything without my stomach hurting. And when I started to slow down and just chew my food more, I thought I was doing fine. But when I really focused on chewing my food slowly and my stomach did not hurt for the first time, I was like, that's all you're telling me, that's all I had to do. Obviously, there was a lot more to it, but I never thought about, okay, gosh, like how many times, even as a teenager, are you grabbing breakfast on the go and running around? Or even like moms, like eating your kids' food while you're standing up at the kitchen doing the dishes at the same time. Like you're not slowing down to sit down to eat your food, or you're eating in the car, you're eating too fast because you're focusing on other things at the same time. But making sure that you're eating whole foods, staying hydrated. As much coffee as I drink, I do have my water bottle here too, y'all. Like that is just the simple things just make such a big difference. Those are some easy places to start that, are so important and that your traditional provider just doesn't always have time to talk to you about, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, and it is unfortunate because a lot of people blame providers, but we were trained otherwise. We were trained to look for disease specifically, right?
Yeah.
Not how to create health. If you think about the annual wellness visit, right? When I was doing internal medicine and I took insurance and all that, Medicare, Medicaid, all the things, an annual preventive wellness wasn't like, okay, how can we get you healthy? It was all about, let's make sure you don't have cancer or disease. That's right. Because if you look at the guidelines, it's okay. Did you do pap smear? Did they have a colonoscopy? Is there a PSA? All the cancer screenings and cholesterol screenings and
Yeah.
diabetes. And not even, there wasn't even a diabetic screening on there. I choose to know if there is now. Back then, it was like, an A1C wasn't even on that annual wellness. And it's okay. So how do we know? Right? How do we know how to get people healthier? So we know they don't have disease, but how do we make sure they don't develop it too? That
Right.
should also be part of the equation.
And by the time you do go over all of the stuff on the checklist of
Right.
are they up to date on their pap smear, mammogram, bone density test, all these things, did they need all these things? By the time you go through that whole list and review their medicines with them, then your time's up. So it's like even if you wanted to talk about these other things, you don't have time. And
Right.
it's so unfortunate. But also something that I saw when I was working in clinic was that people weren't getting any better. Like it was always just adding more medicine because of the side effect of another medication and more patients, but nobody ever like graduated and didn't have to come see you every 6 weeks.
And people take for granted, and just medicine in general takes this for granted. And I'll say even the functional medicine world takes this for granted, is how powerful the mind is. So if you look for something specifically, you are going to find it. If you put your mind to looking for something, if you believe something to be true about, hey, this food will make me sick, you end up getting sick from that. That's how powerful our thoughts and beliefs are. And that's why if you are someone who, like we were just talking about, is not getting better, then we have to start looking at what your beliefs and thoughts are about your life, yourself, and what you're going through.
Yeah, for sure. The best part about all of this that we've talked about today is that you don't have to figure all of this out on your own. And that's exactly why Dr. Liana and I have partnered to launch PEAK Integrative Medicine here in Mississippi, which I still can't believe I'm like saying that because I cannot tell you how long I have been wanting to do this and it's finally coming true.
It's just as sweet for me too, because this feels so full circle for me. My very first functional medicine clinic I opened in Gulfport back in 2017. And so that was my very first clinic. And I moved it to Biloxi and I did so much media there and lots of live talks. And then I actually had to leave Mississippi for family reasons and ended up starting Peak. And here I am bringing it back to where it all started for me. So I'm like so in
Yeah.
the feels about it all.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I know both of us really have this vision and created this space for people to have a smarter, more supportive approach to their health, one that's rooted in functional medicine, integrative medicine, personalized care, really getting answers. And that's what we do here at Peak.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing. We opened 3 years ago and we have at this point helped hundreds of people through our signature metabolic program. We've helped them get answers when they've been unable to find any answers. It's just been really amazing and really heartwarming to see people step up also, because I love our patients at the clinic. They are such go-getters. They're so committed to their health, right? None of this honestly could be happening. Like this clinic expansion couldn't be happening without having people who are really committed and truly want to heal and be healthy, right? They're really tired of not getting answers, bringing information to their doctors that their doctors don't know about. They're tired of all that, and they want people who are in the know and up to date with all the trends that they're seeing on social media, because that's also a thing too. Not that everything on social media is real and you should not believe everything on social media, but we know that everyone's seeing things that they're questioning, and the power of the internet and social media is so potent, and it's making more informed patients. And we love that. And I think what frustrates people is that they take information they're learning on the internet and social media, go to their traditional doctor. The doctor doesn't know what they're talking about, doesn't understand the lingo, and just maybe isn't trained to know what they're talking about. And then they get frustrated. They're like, oh, why doesn't my doctor know? You're basically taking like a Mercedes to like a Kia dealership to get fixed. That makes no sense, right? Why would you do that? That's why we're called PEAK Integrative Medicine, is because we have a foot in both worlds, in both the natural and the conventional traditional world. And we've like successfully learned how to marry the two and be able to honor you where you're at in your health journey and your health preferences too. Some people want only all natural treatment, and some other people just want only all conventional. And we're happy to oblige you like with where your preferences are, because we honor your choice. It's a privilege to have a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you pointed out like asking questions, and the people that do usually seek functional medicine are those who are just tired of the traditional system. And I love it when people come to me with a bunch of questions, because it shows you're invested in your health and that you are an advocate for yourself. I love all the questions. I do. But we also have our own experience in functional medicine and a more holistic approach. Like we didn't just go to school to study this and study traditional medicine, but we have experienced it ourselves too. And so I think that does also give us that credibility, because we can totally relate to where you're at.
Exactly. And when you start functional medicine training, they tell you that you're patient zero. They tell you that you start with yourself. And also, yeah, it's just also good business practice to walk your talk. We love living in integrity, and that's just who we are at our core. We do all the things for ourselves too, right? Like I am sleep obsessed, right? I do red
Okay.
light, I do sauna, I do all the things that I tell patients to do in terms of their lifestyle. Maybe not the personalized treatment based on their genetics and their lab work, but I'm doing the lifestyle things to
Yeah.
promote a healthy lifestyle for myself. And that's,
Yes.
I know, really frustrating for a lot of people is that they go to their doctor and they're like, oh, why is my doctor so unhealthy? My doctor's not sleeping. That makes no sense to some people. Like it's such a disconnect. And
Yeah.
so we look to rectify that. And as a co-founder, when we developed Peak, we were very adamant that our company culture promotes that we walk our talk. So that's really big for us.
Yeah, I love it. Whether you are navigating perimenopause, struggling with unexplained exhaustion, gut issues, or you just feel like something is off and you've been doing all the right things, we've got you. And I'm officially offering telehealth functional medicine services across Mississippi. So you can get guidance, you can do testing, and you can get that support that you need from sitting on your couch, which is great. So if you are interested and want to learn more, you can go to peakintegrativemed.com, and we can help you get to the root and restore balance and help you feel like you again.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you on board, Allison. I just can't tell you, this is so good. This is so good for Mississippi. And we just know that we found such an amazing practitioner to help us and to help everyone. And we see that special spark in you. And we just know that you're just on the path to help so many people heal. And we love your fire and we love your passion.
I'm pumped. I'm so excited. I am. After listening to this episode, if you are looking for ways to feel better faster and want a deep dive into testing, this is exactly what I do. If you want to hop on a call with me, we can discuss the next steps and I can tell you exactly what you need. Dr. Liana, thank you so much for being here today. This has been the best.
It has. Thank you so much for having me.
That's a wrap on today's episode of What the Gut. I'm so grateful that you're here, and I hope you're walking away with insights that bring you closer to feeling your absolute best. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would take a moment to leave a review. It helps more people like you find this podcast and get the answers that they need. And don't forget to hit that subscribe so that you never miss a new episode. Let's keep the conversation going over on Instagram. Find me at Allison Gets Well for daily gut health tips, behind the scenes, and more ways to support your wellness journey. I would also love to hear what topics you want covered in future episodes. If you have a burning question or a guest that you'd love to hear from, shoot me an email at hello@allisongetswell.com. If you're ready for real personalized support on your health journey, check out my one-on-one coaching program at allisongetswell.com. Let's get you feeling amazing from the inside out. Until next time, stay curious, nourish your body, and take care of your gut. Catch you soon.